I'm your host, Nick Toka. Bitcoin's going a bit sideways today. Of course, the big news is out of Toronto with another plane crash. Thankfully, no fatalities, just out of 80 people, I think 17 were injured, but everybody came out scot-free, thank goodness. Weather was terrible up there with lots of wind and lots of snow, so I think that's what happened. And no aviation mess-ups with the air traffic control or pilot error, I believe. I mean, it's going to take approximately, they said, a month to a year for the report to come out, but I'm happy to see everybody came out, just a couple injuries, and everybody's already up and walking and talking and evacuated immediately. The emergency did their job perfectly. Apparently they were there within 30 seconds putting out this fire and getting the people out, so kudos up there. On today's show, a Bitcoin bull run just getting started as institutions load up, says Bernstein. Also, Scaramucci says Bitcoin to hit 200,000 this year. It's just a matter of when, not if. And feature story of today, Bitwise CEO Hunter Horsley explains why Bitcoin is going to reach $1 million. All this and so much more in today's show. Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I'm your host, Nick Toka. Today is February 17th, 2025, and big storms coming through the northeastern areas of North America. Everybody's covered in snow, digging out. I've been digging out all day myself. Thankfully, I've had a snowblower for a few years, but it's been about 4 or 5 days of constant snow, but getting there, all dug out. Again, the plane crash, I believe, also had a lot to do with the snow and the wind, and I got a lot of that up at my area as well, and wind was just blowing sideways and no visibility and ice and everything else, and walking the dogs was a lot of fun. Just couldn't even see my dogs. They were just jumping over at every step. So kind of fun, but I'm still more happy that we only have about a month left of winter. So that's the best news of all. Let's get right into our Bitcoin market watch and technical analysis. And it's a rare time that we see Bitcoin zero, unchanged. I've never seen it gray before. It's either green or red. So currently at $96,371. Ethereum at up 1.5% at 27.15. Solana down 4.5% at 178. Doge down 3% at 26 cents. XRP down 2%, $2.66. Sui down, looks like 2%, $3.18. Getting into the crypto bubbles to get a better visual perspective, we have S up 13%, MKR 6% up, DEX up 4%, MNT up 6%, FTT scam token, up 3.5%. FTX, what a sham that was. And we have about a 50-50 split. Trump coin down 8%, virtual down 7%, JTO down 11%, TEL up down 13%, Jupe down 9%. Into our Bitcoin market cap, we have Bitcoin currently sitting at $1.9 trillion, Ethereum at way down behind them at 326 billion, XRP 153 billion, Solana 87 billion, Doge at 38 billion, Cardano 28.5 billion, Tron 20 billion 700 million. Crypto total market cap is 3.13 trillion, with Bitcoin holding 60.9% of the total market cap, Ethereum at 10.43% of the total market cap, XRP 5%, BNB 3%. Crypto Fear and Greed Index, we are currently at a 47 in neutral. Yesterday we were at a 51, and last week a 47. The Bitcoin halving is going to take place in 2028, approximately April 15th at this point, and there's approximately 1,100 days remaining until then, and 165,728 blocks until the next halving. And until the year 2140, there are 1,174,150 blocks left to mine. And of course, 2140 is that date where every last Bitcoin would have already been mined. Now, keep in mind that 2034 is the date where 99% of all Bitcoin will be mined. So that probably has more effect on us because, most of us aren't going to be here till 2140, but at 2034, we're all going to be here, and 99% of the Bitcoin is going to be mined, so we can effectively call it fully mined at that point. Total assets by market cap, we have gold at $19.6 trillion, Apple at $3.6 trillion, Nvidia $3.4 trillion, Microsoft $3 trillion, Amazon sitting in the number 5 position at $2.4 trillion, Google $2.26 trillion, Bitcoin $1.9 trillion, Meta $1.86 trillion, silver at number 9 $1.854 trillion, Saudi Aramco $1.78 trillion, and Tesla way below at $1.1 trillion. And you can currently get 1,040 Satoshis for one fiat US dollar. And speaking of the US dollar, the current US debt is 36,493,457,000,000, which equals 107,232 per citizen and 323,047 per US taxpayer. So we're going to talk about some stories today. And right now, in the current epoch of Bitcoin, we have the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, and you see in my thumbnail there, huge Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. And we have currently 24 states, basically 50% of the U.S. states have applied for their own Bitcoin state-owned reserve. And Trump, approximately 2 weeks ago, it was the third day he was in office, he made an executive order for the crypto czar to start to go out and look to determine if it's feasible to create a U.S. federal strategic reserve, and gave him 180 days to go out and do that. And they've already stated that it's one of their top priorities, and they will be going out and checking this out to see if it's feasible. So according to my count, that brings us into July. So a lot's going to happen between now and July, but historically the market, the cycle peak happens in October approximately. Last time there was a double peak, one in April and one in the end of October. So I anticipate this strategic reserve is going to make this current price look like chump change. So hang on tight. If you're able to buy the dip, buy the dip. A lot of people have sold, but I feel like it's not quite time to sell yet. I still think we're going to get this pump, especially as we've seen there have been more and more nation states coming out and saying, yeah, we have a Bitcoin stockpile, or hey, yeah, we've bought the BlackRock's IBIT ETF, and we're talking, hundreds of millions of dollars these nation states are buying. So, and also the banks are hodling with the ETFs as well. So they're all coming after the biddy because they know that's where the good returns are and the stability. They're not buying the shit coins. They're not buying the new meme that comes out. They're buying the biddy. So I'm not the only one who thinks that the bull run is ready to get started. We have institutions like Bernstein who are saying Bitcoin bull run just getting started as institutions load up, says Bernstein. The markets have cooled for now, but the bull run is far from over, says analyst at global investment firm Bernstein. Bitcoin's bull run is going to continue thanks to the big money institutions. That's according to a report from global investment firm Bernstein, which said on Monday that investors should be prepared for a further rally in asset and equities related to it. Analysts Gautam Chugani, Mahika Sapra, and Sanskar Chindalia wrote that the bull run was ignited by the prospect and later approved Bitcoin exchange traded funds in the U.S. and then pushed on by the election of crypto-friendly Donald Trump. More is to come, they said, as institutional cash continues to flow into the space. The confluence of adoption by banks, institutional investors, corporate, and eventually sovereigns directly or via sovereign funds is positioning Bitcoin as a clear challenger to gold, the report read. And that's what I was saying just before reading this article. The price of Bitcoin has hit new highs since the new Bitcoin ETF started trading a year ago. And following the election of President Trump in November, the asset broke the long-anticipated 100,000 mark. CoinGecko shows that it's now trading for 96,000 per coin and gains over 86% in the past year. Bernstein analyst added Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth fund buying Bitcoin via the ETF was bullish for the asset as well. Last week, a filing with the SEC showed that the Mubadala investment company, which manages investments for Arab government, had spent $436 million buying shares of BlackRock's spot Bitcoin ETF. We covered this story earlier this week. Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs allow those previously locked out of the world of crypto investing to do so by buying shares and funds that track the price of these assets and trade on the American stock exchanges. And this is what we've gone over this too. This is what allows them. Without this, they're not allowed to, by law, they can't just buy the Bitcoin like you and I do on an exchange or hodl it. They have to go through the traditional markets, and so they're going, it appears, buying the Bitcoin, so the BlackRock IBIT, from what I have read so far. Bernstein revealed that data showing that the top institutions, including Jane Street Group, Citadel Advisors, and Morgan Stanley, had all bought hundreds of millions of dollars in the ETFs. Bernstein analysts have previously predicted the price of Bitcoin would hit $200,000 per coin by the end of 2025. And what I have to say to that is, why so bearish? But it's still certainly, 2x from here. I'll take it. I do personally anticipate a little more than 2x from this point. We do have a couple people talking about 2x from this point, and then we have a more bullish prediction as our feature story of the day. So right now, let's get right into the next story, where Scaramucci says Bitcoin's going to hit 200,000 this year as well, and he's saying it's not a matter of when, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So it's going to happen, but When is it going to happen is his question. In an interview, Anthony Scaramucci predicted that Bitcoin could reach 200,000 this year, driven by potential U.S. moves toward a strategic crypto reserve, global growing adoption, and increased institutional interest. Anthony Scaramucci, founder of Skybridge Capital, believes the U.S. is on a verge of establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve. They sure are, with Bitcoin as its cornerstone asset. Yeah, I mean, what else would it be? A Trump coin, right? In a recent interview hosted by Saxo to mark President Donald Trump's first 30 days in power, Crypto.news was invited to submit questions. Scaramucci suggested that bipartisan discussions, spearheaded by figures like David Sachs, are laying the groundwork for this move. David Sachs has done a very good job, in my opinion, of trying to make a strategic crypto reserve a bipartisan thing, Scaramucci said, but I don't think it will be the scale of what Bitcoiners want. Scaramucci is confident that Bitcoin regulatory framework will be established in the U.S. by the end of the year. He sees this as a part of the global trend with other nations adopting Bitcoin, which he believes will drive its growth. He emphasizes the potential domino effect of such a move internationally, just what I was saying as well. It's very clear to the rest of the world that Americans are going to do something, which is why the rest of the world, lots of these sovereigns, are already getting in place. If you're doing it, I've got to do it too, he explained. It will be when, not if situation. Bitcoin eyeing at 200,000 and beyond. Looking ahead to 2025, Scaramucci made a bold prediction. Bitcoin could hit 200,000 this year, fueled by increased institutional adoption and growing recognition of its potential to rival gold's market capitalization. That's a 100% return from where we are right now, which would only put Bitcoin at a 4 trillion market cap, he said. Scaramucci sees Bitcoin's trajectory as inevitable, given its digital scarcity and increasing adoption, particularly among younger investors. For Bitcoin to truly be an asset class, it would have to trade into the 15 to 20 trillion zone, which would imply that it had roughly the same value to humankind as gold, he said. While acknowledging the inherent uncertainty in his predictions, Scaramucci remains optimistic about Bitcoin's growth potential. If I'm right, we'll have another great year, he added. You know, he's also talking here about Solana and AI coins being good investments. He's saying Solana is good, Ethereum is okay, Avalanche, Polkadot, comparing the current crypto and AI landscapes to the early internet era. Scaramucci drew parallels with the late 1990s tech boom. Yeah. So his view is a good $200,000 for Bitcoin by the end of the year, which really talks about the cycle peak being 200K. That's my bear scenario is 225,000, and my bull is just under 400K. So he's on par with what I'm saying as well. Not much different. And I'm very confident, again, as my bear scenario, that this is where we're going to end up. There's also much more bullish predictions than mine. We've got Max Kaiser talking about 2.2 million. This cycle, we have our friend Michael Saylor, who's talking about multi-millions by 2035, 2038. He's talking 100 million. Kathy Wood's talking 3.5, 4 million by 2038 as well. So I feel like this cycle is going to go higher than 200K, and it appears that there's others that are also behind my more bullish outlook. We have Bitwise CEO Hunter Horsley and he explains why Bitcoin is going to reach $1 million. On February 17th, 2025, Bitwise CEO Hunter Horsley took to X to state, "We underestimate Bitcoin." Yep. He listed reasons why Bitcoin is close to wide adoption and a $1 million value. He challenged everyone to offer counter-arguments, creating a neat digest of the main problems on the way to the moon. 2025 is going to be a watershed year. In a series of X posts, Horsley claimed that he has never been more optimistic about Bitcoin before and outlined several reasons why this year we're going to witness Bitcoin making massive leaps into the mainstream. 2025 will be a watershed year, according to Horsley. Horsley's names Bitcoin ETF's growth, massive Bitcoin purchases by governments and corporations, and favorable crypto regulations as factors that will help elevate Bitcoin this year. So, once this starts happening, right, ETF growth, massive Bitcoin purchases by government and corporations, where's all the Bitcoin going to be? It's going to be gone. So, talk about a pump, and then on top of that, there's no supply. So, this million thing, it seems like, we could reach that with ease. On top of this, Horsley outlined such factors as growing demand for Bitcoin in nowadays geopolitical environment and efforts made by financial institutions and banks aimed at easier Bitcoin onboarding for the general public. In conclusion, Bitwise's CEO adds that more and more reputable people voice praise for Bitcoin, moving its value further. Some of these reasons are not something new and reappear each time someone says. The next bull run is going to be completely different. Institutional investors' interest in Bitcoin, high-profile endorsements, and improved regulations were already named in anticipation of the 2020 crypto rally. Nevertheless, the scale at which all these factors hit today is a different thing. For instance, many Wall Street veterans went from a firm disapproval for Bitcoin to advocacy of digital currencies in recent years. Today, BlackRock manages the biggest bag of Bitcoins in the world. In October 2017, BlackRock called Bitcoin an index of money laundering. Yeah, I remember that. In 2018, Berkshire Hathaway CEO Warren Buffett called Bitcoin a rat poison, while the company co-chair Charlie Munger compared Bitcoin trading to selling turds. Buffett continued to dismiss crypto in the following years. However, in 2021, Berkshire Hathaway invested in Brazilian Nubank, a digital bank working with cryptocurrency. These are only two of many examples of how big institutional investors embraced Bitcoin in the 2020s, paving the way for an unprecedented Bitcoin boom. As for the new trends unseen during 2017 and 2021 rallies, 2025 has a lot to offer. Crypto ETFs have already helped to elevate the support of Bitcoin price early in 2024, attracting new big players in the crypto market. The current level of demand for Bitcoin from entire countries to certain jurisdictions and corporations drawing comparisons to arms race for space race of the past. For instance, there are 20 Bitcoin reserves bill proposed in 18 states of the U.S. If passed, they may end up in states purchasing nearly 250,000 Bitcoin. As for the geopolitical side of things, Russia doubling down on Bitcoin as a means to dodge Western sanctions and facilitate overseas trade may be a vivid example of how the global outlook opens the gates to crypto. We saw it before when the spring of 2020 proved that people see crypto as a haven in periods of global shakeups. These days, the world is hardly more stable than in 2020. The demand for Bitcoin from various types of actors has been growing especially quickly in 2024, 2025, while the 2024 having cut the supply right at the beginning of the new bull market. Potential pitfalls. Instead of just bringing his reasoning behind a bullish prediction, Horsley urged his subscribers to tell what, in their opinion, could potentially block Bitcoin from reaching $1 million. It effectively created a decent thread citing all main issues associated with the future and present of Bitcoin. One of the disturbing concerns is associated with the quantum computers. Their computational power may potentially turn out to be high enough to mess with Bitcoin network. The question of whether quantum computers will effectively end Bitcoin as we know it today still has no answer. Yes, I have an answer, actually. Let me continue reading. And it's hardly good news. One of the commentators did point out that quantum computers, but just noted that the future technologies in general may make Bitcoin irrelevant. Right. So the quantum computer that they're building, I forget the numbers, but it's something like, we'll call it 50, mega something, right, in computer terms. But what's needed to crack the code of the Bitcoin security was something like 500 million quintillion bits per second, and right now the quantum computer is at like 50 mega. It was like 50 bits per second. I know I'm getting this wrong, but it's basically, even when they do get this quantum computer working, which if you've seen it, it's, Google's making it. They already have pretty much working. It's about the size of half of like the space shuttle, and it's massive. It's about 20, 30 feet tall and 10, 15, 20 feet in diameter. Look, having said that, the very first computer was also the size of an entire room, right? And now, there's a tiny PC, which basically does almost the same work as a regular full-size PC, and it fits in the palm of your hand. So things certainly can accelerate there, but they're so far from breaking the security behind the Bitcoin and the blockchain, even when they do get it to work. While quantum computers, let's go on with the article, are a potential threat, another mentioned problem on the way to the moon is scalability. An ex-user going by the name of Dot Kruger moniker named the inability of Bitcoin to scale the best argument against Bitcoin reaching 1 million soon. However, he added that the wrapped Bitcoin may be considered as a solution to this issue. Horsley agreed, adding that Bitcoin's ETFs are another remedy for the scalability problem. Also, each Bitcoin is actually 100 million Satoshis, and you can use the Lightning Network to immediately send and receive funds. So that's another way that's currently already in use to get around this. Other commentaries cited such concerns as a lack of use cases, people's reluctance to use Bitcoin as a currency, and alleged dropping levels of decentralization. One of the commentators showcased a bit of wit by saying that if Trump and Musk make the dollar deflationary, the demand for Bitcoin will go down. Yeah, I agree with that, but they're not in any way, shape, or form making the dollar deflationary. In fact, very soon they're going to have to increase the debt ceiling and start printing more money. So that's out of the question as well. Now, Bitcoin as a currency. Well, it was never made to be a currency, folks. It's made to be a reserve currency. So even the banks. So the banks own Bitcoin, for example, right? And there's international trade. So, you're in the States and you're trading something, goods and services with somebody in Spain. So the banks, just as you do now, will send the transaction, or you, in fact, can send the transaction directly. But let's go through the banks, right? Because this is an international. We're talking about a big trade. You sold 10 million widgets to somebody in Spain and you have to pay them, right? So obviously this is going to go through probably a smart contract of some sort, but let's say even if it's a basic contract, then the payment's going to go through. How are they going to pay? Well, I'm going to pay in Bitcoin. So the bank will send your, let's say, $1 million in Bitcoin to Spain. Spain will receive this right away, but they're not sending, so Spain's bank is going to receive this right away, but they won't be sending per se Bitcoin directly. They'll be sending a promise note of the Bitcoin. So at the end of the day, so 4 o'clock the bank's closed, well, that's when the transaction is actually going to get concluded. As we know, it takes 10 minutes for each block to get processed. So even if you send a transaction, it very well could take up to 9 minutes 59 seconds, or give or take. It's never exactly 10 minutes. However, the bank, being promised the Bitcoin in Spain, can release the funds to the buyer, or to the seller, I guess in this case. The seller will get their funds, and then the buyer's bank in the US at the end of the day will then do its final closure for the day in Bitcoin. So, they made 10 international transactions for different companies to Spain. Well, then at the end of the day at 4 o'clock, 10 transactions will go in Bitcoin to the Spanish bank. So that's more how things are envisioned with Bitcoin as a reserve currency. To think that you're going to do this in gold, it just doesn't make sense. The banks, what are they going to do? Just wait, I'm going to send you, 50 bars of gold or something along those lines. It's just not feasible. So this is where the electronic part and the security part makes a big difference between the physical gold and the digital gold of Bitcoin. Horsley is not the only expert saying that Bitcoin is going to go much further than we expect. Brian Armstrong, Robert Kiyosaki, and Daniel Roberts, to name a few, express similar views. The reasoning may vary, but all of them expect exponential growth in Bitcoin prices. Yeah, and then there's me. So, again, my bear scenario is around the 200, 250, I think it's 277 range, which is based on historical data, and I've taken the previous halving 4-year cycles and compared the percentage that they've gone up in those other cycles, and it seems that each cycle the percentage gains hasn't been as much as the previous cycle. So I've taken that into consideration, and so my range is between 250,000 and I think it's 377,000. So I strongly anticipate a price within there. Now, I didn't take into account institutional adoption. I didn't take into account nation state adoption. I didn't take into account pension fund adoption. I didn't take into account a lot of things. So, I didn't take into account the scarcity and the fact that once the government start buying, there's going to be no Bitcoin left. So I don't have an issue with Horsley here saying it's going to go to $1 million, because it very well could be. So hang on tight, guys. You got to be tough. You got to have like balls of steel here. And when there is a dip, it's definitely time to buy the dip. Don't get freaked out. Buy the dip. That's what the smart people are doing. Hopefully you found this show entertaining. And yes, I'm a strong, firm believer that we will be getting a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And I feel like the individual states are going to actually expedite this and they will get a strategic Bitcoin reserve before the feds do. So it's going to be interesting times here. Please remember, everybody, that money is abundant and money is everywhere. Time is what's scarce, so spend less time than what you earn. And if you suddenly make more money, save more money. Don't spend more money. And start saving today. Start saving in your 20s. Start saving in your teens. And you should be able to retire in your 40s if you do it that way. And if you have a great idea, start a great idea today. Don't wait around. Start today. And things are never going to go as you planned. And never wait for perfection, because perfection is never going to come up. Start today. Things will slowly come together. You'll make a few mistakes. You'll fix those mistakes. You'll get better and better and better. And your idea will finally come to life. Please do share, like, comment, and subscribe to this stream and this video, as I am in an effort to get to over 500 subscribers, and we will see you on the next stream. Thanks so much for joining Crypto News Global, folks, and have a good night.